This podcast was recorded on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation.
Hello, guys. Welcome back. I was expecting you to go hello.
Sorry, I was busy eyeballing the camera.
Nice. Guys, welcome back to another week of Mad About You.
It's a very exciting week.
Yeah, but just let me say my bit about wherever you are and whatever you're doing. We appreciate having you with us because we do every week. It means a lot that you choose to spend, 45 to an hour with us every week. So thank you for joining us. And as Jad said, we're having a little bit of a special week in studio today because a couple of days ago, some of you may know, most of you probably, if you're loyal listeners, would know that Jad and I told, social media that we're having another little baby come the end of the year.
I'm pregnant. Some people might just be pod listeners and not have the social media.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said most of you might know.
Yeah. So if you just found out for the first time, that's awesome.
Yeah, crazy. Good. Yeah, enjoy that. So yeah, at the end of the year, we're having another bub. And so we thought this week on the pod, we'd take you through sort of, Jad is already 12 weeks with the bub. So she's already a trimester through, which is crazy to think that there's only two to go. Yeah, it is very terrifying. But come Christmas this year, we're going to have, our trio is going to become 4, which is,
what the helly?
Being a trio is tricky, and so being 4 at the end of the year is going to come with its its bumps along the way, and it's going to be inevitably even trickier. So we thought we'd sort of discuss the journey so far and how we're doing and how it's sort of different to round 1 pregnancy where it's just the two of you and you kind of probably get to enjoy and relax and sink into it a little bit more. So
this pregnancy's been really hard for Locke.
Huh? Well, yeah, running a couple of businesses, looking after a kid full time so you can nap during the day. Yeah, it is a bit tough, mate.
Yeah, because I'm growing a human.
But we're, of course, excited for, Fletch to, become a big brother, and that's going to be very, very special. But, it's going to be tricky, I think.
It's weird to think of Fletch being the big
he's such a baby
sibling.
He's such a little
baby
ball of bub. So we'll be talking about all that today, so stick with us for that little chat, and then I'll ask Mum and Dad, which we cannot, and dare I say, I don't know if we're more qualified now, but we will be at the end of the year. We're going to be even more qualified to answer your questions. So I'll ask Mum and Dad at the end of the episode. Comes from a girl who's actually written in, who's struggling to have a tough conversation with a partner around finances. So I know that is always kind of a bit of an interesting topic in relationships. So stick with us for that one.
But guys, we wanted to start off the pod by chatting a little bit. We just went on our kind of like first family vacation. We've been on a couple of trips as a family, but they were a bit more like centered around, one of them we went to the AO, I think. So it wasn't really like a vacation. Although it was lovely to go, it was kind of a semi, working trip.
Yeah, and the other one was a wedding for literally one day where we went down, went to a wedding, came home.
So we haven't been like somewhere where the goal was to relax and enjoy and have fun. So we did that for the first time over the weekend, and it was really, really beautiful. But we kind of wanted to touch more on traveling with, an infant and also being pregnant at the same time. Because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about that. Like a lot of people have bubs and maybe haven't kind of taken the leap to go and travel yet and are curious to know how it really is. And you see a lot of mixed messaging online. Like, for example, before we had travelled with Fletch, there were some people saying that his age specifically, so he's 11 months now, is like a horrible time to travel with babies. Is he a baby? What is he? He's almost a toddler. Are we still saying baby?
Yeah, he's a baby.
We're running baby.
He'll always be my baby.
Yeah. So that kind of scared me a little bit because we haven't travelled with him since he was was he 6 months last time?
Yeah, in January we went away for 2 days or something, and 6 months is it's vastly different to 11 months. They're pretty much just this little bundle of fun that is excited to sit on your lap and look around and interact with a few things, but they can't really crawl around yet. They can't move around. They can't get around. They're not super excitable by things, but 11 months, like he can take a few steps now. He can coast on furniture. He can pull himself up on things. He wants to talk and babble and explore, and the last thing he wants to do is sit still. And we went somewhere where it was, I think it was 2 hours 45 flight. So for him to sit still for that long is Yeah, I don't think it's ever been done.
And we also don't. We're not using screens yet, so we are entertaining him entirely ourselves. And yes, it was a little bit of a challenge at times, but I do want to assure people by saying it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. I thought there would be like tantrums and yelling and screaming and really a lot of frustration that he was strapped to us in the seatbelt. He was a little bit antsy. He definitely wanted to like move around a little bit more, and he needed a lot of distracting. Like we're really running the books. Thank God.
I think it's a planning thing, like
Yeah.
when you know that you got 3 hours to get through and that each little thing that you take might give him 10, 15 minutes of entertainment, you do have to have a lot in your rucksack of goodies ready to rock and roll with him.
Yeah, so we brought every possible toy that we could bring that wasn't going to make a loud noise on the plane that was annoying to other passengers that we knew he was interested in at the time. He's recently become very engaged in books, which is very handy because it means we can sit there quietly and read. He literally will read the same book like 7 times. And by read, I mean like he points to a dog and then wants to turn the page, which is really sweet. But we thankfully had, I would say, a pretty decent first flight in. And then we went straight onto a helicopter, basically, which, again, we were a little bit nervous about. I think this is the only mode of transport to the island that we went to. So didn't really have a choice. It was like, hop on the helicopter or don't go.
Cheeky flex from Jad.
What?
Yeah, we went to this island.
Some people don't like flying with
there was a helicopter.
A lot of people are scared of helicopters. My point. Yes.
Is that a thing?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Isn't like a fear of heights like the number one biggest rational fear in the world?
Yeah, but I didn't know you knew much about rational fears. Most of yours are irrational.
Rational fears.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that lots of people were scared of helicopters. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes, they're bumpy, like they're loud, they feel a bit unstable. You can feel the wind straight away. The turbulence is hectic.
Sure. I can understand it.
What's wrong with you? Anyway, sorry about him. Locke thought I was flexing. No, I was trying to be empathetic. Anyway, so Fletch did really well on the helicopter as well. He just started tugging the pilot's headphones, which was a bit how you going. But, Locke did really well at keeping him entertained in the back seat. And he mostly looked out the window, which was really cute.
Yeah, I mean, but how exciting for a little one to have just this huge open window and just be looking out over water and rocks and, It's exciting for adults to do that, so I can't even imagine what that would be like through the eyes of a little one who's, experiencing all these weird little things for the first time. Yeah, it'd be very special.
So he did really well. So yeah, if you're nervous about traveling with a bub, having new experiences, I think he did really well, especially considering at his age he's supposed to be a nightmare to travel with. So I'm really happy.
I can understand how they would be nightmares because he did want to get up and he was standing on your lap and waving at the people behind and making noises and tough to get to sleep because there's so much going on. It's not like a dark room at home where you have your sound machine and your
it's a little bit stressful at times
it's
for sure,
just different but
it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. Once we got to the island, he basically just had an amazing time. The only thing we kind of had difficulty with was meal times. He was a little bit restless. He doesn't want to sit in a chair for 2 hours, and eat food for that long. So also because the island had set meal times, it often didn't align with when he would normally eat. And they were pretty good at kind of bringing meals forward for him, but sometimes we kind of had to sit and wait, and he was quite hungry by the time the food came out and even close to nap times at times. So that was the only thing that was a little bit tricky, was kind of keeping him entertained in the chair. We had to pull him out a few times and let him crawl around the restaurant, which is fine because it was like this beautiful open island beachy resort where it was very fluid in terms of like how you could move and get around and whatever. So it wasn't like an enclosed restaurant or anything. So that was one thing that we found a little bit tricky. He did all right with his naps.
I think one thing to consider if you're a parent traveling is that you can be as flexible or inflexible as you really want to be with sort of their schedule and routine, because essentially when you go somewhere and you have a baby who still needs to have X amount of naps a day and still needs to eat at certain times and have bottles which need to be heated up in a microwave or a kettle, like you need all these things around. It does sometimes feel a little bit like just parenting in a new location. It doesn't really feel like you're, holidaying or vacationing because, there were multiple meals in the few days where like Jad would sit there by herself or I would sit there by myself and one of us would be with Fletch in the room sleeping or doing something, so it's like, it's not like you're always having this happy-go-lucky time as a family. There's pockets and moments where you get to do that, but there's also, pockets and moments where one of you is, parenting for hours on end and one is, trying to have a little bit of respite, so.
But I think for the most part, it was worth it. Like I would 100% go again and do it again over not, because it's a little bit hard at times.
Yeah, the juice is definitely worth the squeeze when it comes to having these special moments. And this is like, I would say something that I noticed is that Jad and I are unbelievably lucky in the sense that we've gone to some very, very special places in the world with, work and just a love for travel over the years. And that's how we've wanted to spend time and money, is experiencing awesome things and making memories. But going here to an unbelievably special place with Fletch, it, as hard as it was and how, it was very different because you're not just the two of you relaxing on your own, time. Every little thing that he's experiencing for the first time, you kind of get to experience again through his eyes, which is very special, So like even him being in swimming in a pool, like being in a floaty, like seeing fish, seeing sharks, seeing a helicopter, like seeing palm trees sway in the wind, like swinging on a hammock, like all these little things that, you might take for granted having, experienced them multiple times, he's experiencing them for the first time and seeing his eyes light up in those moments and being, so enthralled by them is very special and kind of helps you, click back and realize how special they are as well and experience it, for the first time like a kid again.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the best part about the trip.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I found that it was actually more relaxing than I thought it would be. I've had this idea that there's no such thing as relaxing anymore, like once you have an 11-month-old. And we obviously are pretty good at kind of taking turns in terms of like watching Fletch so that I guess the other has moments or times to do things. For example, we both had a go at snorkeling on our own, which normally we'd love to do together, but in this case, obviously, one of us had to watch Fletcher. So I went snorkeling on one day and then the next day Locke went snorkeling and I actually took Fletcher on the boat with us, which was really cool. And I almost talked myself out of it. So I'm really glad that I did it. I kind of got in my head a bit and I was like, oh gosh, like what if he gets motion sick? What if I get motion sick? Because Fletcher's never been on a boat before. And I started getting in my head about what if he doesn't nap? Like, what if he doesn't fall asleep and I'm stuck with a really grumpy, overtired baby on a boat by myself while Locke's snorkeling? Like, I just started getting in my head to the point where I very almost said, no, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. I actually said I wasn't going to go and I changed my mind like a few minutes later and I kind of thought to myself, no, bite the bullet, go do it. You're not going to know if it's hard until you go and do it. And I'm really, really glad that I had that mind shift because I ended up having a really lovely time and Fletch fell asleep straight away. Obviously, the boat rocking was really nice for him, the fresh air. He just fell asleep in my arms. I didn't even have to manually rock him like I normally do, which was really, really nice. And I ended up having this beautiful time on the boat while Locke was snorkeling. And yeah, we had all these experiences that were new and exciting. Like Locke said, it was amazing watching like the world through Fletcher's eyes and watching him get to experience all this new stuff. There were frogs in our bathroom that he was very excited about, which normally we would be like, there are frogs in the bathroom. But this time around, we were like, there are frogs in the bathroom. So that was nice. But yeah, for the most part, we had a really lovely time. And we want to tell people that if you're scared of traveling with an 11-month-old or a 1-year-old, or around that age, do it. Because it was absolutely worth it. And I think we both say that we would do it again. And even being pregnant like that, that didn't even come into play really. Like I felt pretty good the whole time. They were really great with food there in terms of like my dietaries. So overall, I would say it was very successful.
And we probably made it a little bit harder for ourselves in the commutes and travel because we choose not to sort of use screens to, deflect his gaze. It probably makes it a bit harder. So I'm sure if, you were prone to using screens that your probably commute and time, in the air and taxis and traveling and stuff would be probably even easier.
Absolutely.
So you'd probably have even less to worry about. So
yeah.
Yeah, bite the bullet, do it. You won't regret it. You'll create beautiful memories. And, as hard as it is, even if it is super hard, at the end, you'll get home and you'll realize that you can get through it anyway, even if it is difficult. And there'll be pockets of memories which you'll cherish. So go for it, guys.
Well, enough about the trip.
Yeah, let's talk about your belly.
Let's talk about new baby.
All right, guys. So we got number 2 coming, and
Hang on. That sounds weird.
what?
We've got a number 2 coming.
Yeah, like baby number 2, mate.
Oh, God, honey.
Get your mind out of the gutter. You don't have to think about shitting your pants. Guys, okay, our second child is on the way. It's being cooked in Jad's oven. And something that we always find is a bit strange when you tell people that you're pregnant is, and I know this, obviously happens for some people. It's a bit of a surprise, but actually with the first baby that we had with Fletch, when we told my parents, my dad asked the next half an hour. So like we were just mulling around the house. He asked, I reckon 9 to 10 times if we were trying. Like he was just dumbfounded that we decided to have a baby. And so
he thought it was a surprise.
Yeah, he thought it was like an accident, a surprise. And we were like, no, we understand how it works. Like, we haven't had one for the first 7 years of being together. Now we're having one after a few years of marriage. Like we're ready, And so when we told a few people this second time, the same question comes up of like, were you trying?
Were you trying?
It was our decision. We wanted to have them quite close together because we figured that we were already sort of, in, I wouldn't say struggle street, but times are tough, and so we might as well keep the tough times rolling instead of come out the other side.
It's funny,
and then start it all again.
Yeah, most people have the thought of like, let's get our bearings again. Let's ground ourselves before we think about having number 2. We thought, you know what, we're really in the shit here. We can't get much worse. Let's just keep going.
Just keep the tough times rolling. And I think something that...
Sorry, can I interrupt you?
Oh, yeah.
But the thing I find funny is that people ask you like as if they're surprised that you've kind of fallen pregnant again, as in you don't know how it works. Like, I feel like some people have...
I don't think it's that how it works. I think they're more like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you ready to take on 2 of these little things, because... they're all encompassing, so.
But what they're really kind of asking you, and I find it especially funny when parents are like, were you trying? It's like, the word trying is kind of replacing the word having unprotected sex on purpose.
Yeah, it's not nice to think about your parents thinking about you doing
But I know,
that,
but isn't it funny how everyone's happy to
we're
ask
all
this
adults.
question?
Yeah, but it's
just quite an intimate detail, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. And I like saying, yeah, we had to try heaps as well. Morning, lunch, and night for months.
Lachlan,
it just wasn't working.
Pull it together.
Well, I mean, you might as well have fun with it, right? Yeah, but what people also think as well is when you tell them that you're pregnant and you have this little, 11-month-old at home who is, and we were pregnant when he was 8 months old. So
wait, were we?
Yeah, well,
was it 9?
12 weeks, and he's just turned 11 months. So that's 8 months, right? There you go. Okay, that might be a little bit wild, considering that, some people wait for a 2-3-year-old where they're walking and talking and a little bit more autonomous, to add a second one. But, Jad grew up with her sister with quite a small age gap.
I think it was 17 months.
I think really enjoyed it and thought it was very special to have a sibling at such a close age. So, we thought, we'd, follow along those footsteps and give that a crack.
I think a lot of people will be interested to know as well is how we found out. So obviously...
The pregnancy test. Don't you just piss on the stick?
What's wrong with you?
I'm trying to give
some
people a laugh.
Don't do that. Some people just wait for like a missed period,
Oh, you just leave it up to chance?
No, you just wait. Sure. You just wait to find out.
You're really bad at waiting.
Yeah.
Jad buys the pissy sticks and they'll say like...
What is with your language today?
Sorry, Jad will buy the sticks that you urinate on and they'll say, use them 6 days after your first
5
missed period
days before your missed period. Yeah. I like the early detection tests. I like to do it as early as possible.
And Jad will do them at like 3 days before and then she'll go, nothing's shown up.
No, not 3 days. I do it. Okay, let me tell the story. You're a horrible storyteller for a podcast, man. Okay, so here's what happened. It was a month where I think it was the second month where my period had come back. So I'd had my period once. The second month we were like, my period's come back. Let's try to have a baby. Woo. So we did. And it got to around
Heaps.
around that mark where I could start testing. Now, I did a test and it came back with a very faint positive, which happened when I did my very first test with Fletcher. I had a really, really faint line and then I tested again and it was darker. So this one was really faint. So I immediately thought, oh my God, I'm pregnant again, and was obviously elated, told Locke, super excited. I think I did another test.
Would you mind if I bumped in here?
Yeah.
Just for a bit of, adding to this story. So Jadé actually bought a T-shirt which said promoted
Honey,
to be...
no, you're skipping ahead. This is why you're not telling the story.
Oh, I disagree.
So I'd done a couple of positive tests now, but they were both faint. However, I was really excited and I was quite sure I was pregnant because this is was similar to what happened last time. So I got really excited and I was seeing my mum and sister that morning and I actually told them straight away that I was pregnant. So they were very excited, tears in their eyes. There was a lot of emotions. We had announced our pregnancy. We were elated basically. Locke, however, saw the initial faint test and went, you know what, I'm not so sure about this. And I went, no, there's definitely a line. A line means pregnant for sure. And he went, yeah, I don't know, I'm not feeling confident. So when I told him I was going to tell my mum and sister, he was like, I don't know if I'm on board with this. And I was like, no, I'm going to tell them.
Just to clarify with you guys, Jad showed me a test and it was so faint that I couldn't see it, to which she said, give me a moment. She took a photo of it, put it in an editing app and then turned the contrast up and down.
No, but Locke's half blind.
Till the line showed up and then goes, now can you see it? And I was like, yeah, but I'm not sure if that counts if you have to edit the photo in an app.
No, because there's no line if you're not pregnant. Everyone knows that. The line will not show up at all. Not even there's no shadow line. That doesn't exist. Anyway, so I thought Locke's he's got a seeing problem in one of his eyes, bless him. And I thought he's obviously just not seeing the line very well. I can definitely see the line. So anyway, I half announced it. We got home. I started doing more tests. Mind you, this is the 5-day early, the most earliest possible that you could test. Started doing more tests and they were coming back negative. So I started thinking, oh, what's going on here? Maybe I tested too early. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Locke's right and I'm imagining things and I had to edit the line on. So a few days passed and I thought, you know what, I'll just wait for more time to pass because then obviously the line's supposed to get darker as time passes because your HCG, is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. Levels rise. I should know by now. The lines were not appearing at all, basically, over time as I got closer and closer to what was supposed to be my period arriving. I was doing many negative tests. So I then had to basically unannounce to my mum and sister that I was in fact not pregnant. I'd gotten a bit too excited and had somehow done a false positive. So not really sure how that happened, but it can happen.
Well, yeah, if you edit the photo in an app, it definitely happen.
Okay. Or it can be a chemical pregnancy where I basically... this is not the scientific term, but basically you can, I think you can fertilize, but it doesn't actually attach to the wall, your uterus lining. So it doesn't continue to be a pregnancy. So there's an element of pregnancy, but then it just drops off. So it could have been that I just detected very, very early on.
Or the edit.
Stop talking. So I was not pregnant. Basically, my period arrived, confirmed period, not pregnant. Then the following month, we continued trying.
Heaps.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
We really didn't, guys. That's just a joke. When you have a kid, trust me, there's no heaps of trying.
We tried when we could. And basically, I, for some reason, didn't learn from my lesson, tested really early again. And the same thing happened. So I tested early, got a positive, very faint, thought, oh my God, I'm pregnant, but tried not to get too excited because of what had happened the previous month. And then waited a couple of days and I started getting negatives again. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. Why does this keep happening? Then I clocked that my cycle was actually longer than it was before I had Fletcher. So I was getting my period after like 30 days, 31 days, whereas it used to be about 28. So I was actually testing way earlier than the test allows you to test, basically. So I then, a few days passed and I went, you know what? I actually am now 5 days out from my period. So now is actually the first day where I should be able to test. So I did a test that was very faint positive, had a few days of a completely negative test, nothing at all, and then reached what should have been my first testing date. And I went, you know what? I'm just going to try it once more. Still very impatient, clearly. And it came back positive again. So I was like, okay, hang on. This didn't happen last time. I'm getting a positive result. And I thought, oh my God, there's a chance that I actually am pregnant. So I went through all the emotions this month of thinking I was pregnant again, realizing that I wasn't pregnant, and then all of a sudden being pregnant again. So there's a lot going on. But by this stage, because I told Locke every time I got a positive, we were both just like, it was so anticlimactic. Like we were really like, come on, what is going on here? Are we pregnant? Are we not? So I did a positive, and then the next day got stronger, finally. And then the next day got stronger, and I'm going, okay.
No edits needed.
I think I might actually be pregnant. Now, what I forgot to mention was that this month when I got the initial positive test, so before the negatives that I got, I actually announced to Locke that I was pregnant again with a shirt that I'd bought. And it was a shirt that I bought for Fletcher that said, promoted to Big Brother. So I've put him in this shirt and I've shown Locke, and then I started getting negative tests again. And Locke was like,
I just said, bro, until we talk to a doctor, don't talk to me about this.
You've
okay?
now announced 2 non-pregnancies to me. This one you've gone and gotten a shirt for, and I'm like, I'm just doing these positive tests that are really confusing. But turns out I actually did end up being pregnant. It's just that I kind of announced it too soon, and then we thought I was negative again. Anyway, so we went to the doctor. We just needed confirmation. Locke was really not having a bar of it until I got the doctor's confirmation, even with the darkening lines. He was like, I don't care. Go to the doctor, get your test, and then find out. So I went to the doctor, and guys, you would not believe it. I went to the doctor a bit too early, and my HCG levels were not high enough to detect the pregnancy yet. The doctor was like, you're going to have to come back and test in 2 days. And I was like, this has got to be a joke. So I had to go home from the doctor to Locke and tell him, still don't know if I'm bloody pregnant or not. Oh my God, it felt like the longest. This was all within like a week. This was the longest week of my life. Went back to the doctor the next bloody day, got my bloods done again. And they were like, yeah, you're pregnant. And I was like, yes. And by the time I went and told Locke, he was like, okay, cool. Like it was so...
Yeah, I'd already processed it 19 times.
It was so nothing. Like there's no announcement video like last time, because I think the one video I did take was us going, oh, actually might not be. There's no line there. So anyway, it definitely wasn't like the first time. It was a long journey of ups and downs, and we finally got there in the end when the doctor confirmed that I was in fact pregnant. But really, I don't even think I believed it until we went for the ultrasound.
Yeah.
Because it was so chaotic.
It was a fun few weeks. It was a long journey, I'll tell you that much for free. But yeah, it was definitely a different feeling than the first time, because, you know, the first time you find out it's all new and it is just the two of you and things are about to change. But now that a second one is coming along, things are definitely going to change. But because you've already been through, you know, the newborn phase and essentially like becoming a parent, it's definitely a little bit, I would say, like less daunting, because you're not going into it blind. You know exactly what's going to happen. You literally know even like where you're going to park at the hospital, where you're going to give birth, like how you're going to get the baby home, like how the first few weeks are going to be with sleeping, feeding, nappy, whatever it is. Like all those things that you were terrified about the first time, you don't even think about the second time. So it's like this, it is this different, your mind is in this different sort of headspace, which is interesting. And because you've gained all this sort of like confidence and competence dealing with a kid for almost a year now, you know that you'll be fine when the next one comes, and if anything, you'll be more equipped to deal with them. But the only thing that I think about, which is gets my head in a bit of a twist sometimes, is literally just like the logistics of having two.
You Locke's so analytical. He's like, the logistics. I'm like, that is not the thing that I'm thinking about at all.
Oh, what are you thinking
Which is
about?
really interesting. I don't know, like how emotionally I'm going to deal with being postpartum and then having a bub that I still need to take care of. Like who I'm gonna feel really guilty about not giving all my attention because that's just how life's been for the past 11 months or whatever it's gonna have been, 18 months, 17 months. Like whether or not the newborn is going to sleep as poorly as Fletcher did. So then having Fletcher, who maybe still is going to be sleeping poorly because he has, God bless him, terrible sleeping habits.
You understand that that's the logistics.
That's
right?
not logistics. Logistics is like getting a double pram and having two seats in the car and feeding two mouths.
Or like figuring out how to get two of them to sleep at different times, or if one screams, waking up the other one. Yeah, that's the logistics of having two kids. Because right now we don't have to think about any of that.
We're on the same page.
If Fletcher yells or screams at night, it's not like he's going to wake up another sleeping baby.
I was imagining like a graph.
When we go to the car and we put him in, like you can put him in the car and like, what are you going to leave the other baby inside? Like you don't have unlimited
Well, I'm not
hands.
thinking about that. I'm thinking about sitting in bed, being hungry, and
Locke
two
delivering
babies
me
are screaming
sushi.
at me. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, but I think we're in a blessed situation, which perhaps majority of people might not be in, whereby we both work from home, so we're always around to assist and help the other if need be.
Yes,
and that's a very lucky position to be in. I think because
Absolutely.
I think now, having been through it, if I wasn't there to give you assistance and you weren't there to assist me at times, I think it would be such a different journey for the primary caregiver, and it would be.
And that's what most people do. Most people are doing that, which
So
I
unbelievably
find
difficult.
mind-blowing that they aren't both at home all the time, because even with us both at home all the time, it's still bloody hard.
Yeah, and so, even we bumped into recently at the airport, we bumped into this lady whose kid was having a little yarn with Fletch, and she said she was waiting for a partner at the airport, and she said that, whilst he was gone away for work for a week, she had a 3-year-old and her 11-month-old, the same as Fletch, and I just thought to myself, like, man, that would be, like, doing that for a day, 2 days would be difficult, but doing that for a week, it's not saying like, oh, it's so hard, like it can't be done. It's just saying that like it's nice to have a helping hand around, and it's nice to be able to like, go and have a shower for 20 minutes and not have to worry that, your kids are going to do something wild. Like it's nice to have help, and so for those without it, like it's just different ballgame.
And I do want to say, although I think the thing that's really hard to wrap your head around is that because it's so, like, it's the norm, right? The norm is for one of the parents to go away to work and the other one is to the primary caregiver, or the kids happen to be in, daycare some of the time. Because it's normal to have that situation where one's away and one's at home with the kids, I think people just expect people to get on with it and be all right. But it's so bloody hard, like so hard sometimes to wrangle one, like on your own for a long period of time. It just, for me, I feel like the narrative is so skewed to like, that's just motherhood and that's just how it is, or that's just fatherhood and that's just how it is. It shouldn't be like that. It should be like, there should be way more acknowledgement around, like, just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean it's not fucking hard and it's not unbelievably like
I don't think I've ever
difficult.
heard someone not say that it's hard.
No, but I think that it's
just
kind of like you hear of people who are like, I'm a stay-at-home mum and I have 3 kids, and you go, oh, that's nice, and you carry on, right? It should be like, oh my God, what do you mean? That should be the response. Are you okay? Are you all right? Can I come over and help? I don't know you, but what do you need from me? I will do you want me to buy you a coffee? That should be the reaction, is like shock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
But because it's normal,
But
it's
I
well,
think different people handle things differently as well. Like I've definitely seen far more competent parents and not competent parents, and I've seen people who I go, you would thrive being a parent, and I'm not sure if it would be, as easy
it's
for
still
you.
hard
And so
for everyone.
there's definitely people in my life where I look at them and I go, you crush it with that many kids. Like you're just a machine at this thing.
But they might just be really good at like masking.
I go, I don't know if you should have had the second, because you can barely handle the first, So there's
can anyone barely handle the first?
Different people. Yeah, I think it's such a, it's having a kid is such a spectrum of things. Like you could have an easy kid, you could have a difficult kid, you could have a kid with medical issues, a breeze. Like it's so different for people. And I think their level of skill and competence and temperament and character and patience is all things that come into play and will it affect, the dynamic at home, the relationship, with your partner, with the kid. It's all, it all comes into play. But I understand what you mean. I'm always in awe of, like I think now being a parent and having such a vaster appreciation of my own upbringing because my mum essentially after having a couple of kids gave up work to be a full-time carer because it wasn't worth it when you have 5 children to send them into daycare and to be paying and then go and make a salary which essentially just pays for your daycare. It's not, it doesn't make sense. And also it's probably long-term better for your kids to have one of the parents help raise them and so she did this thing where she gave up essentially her career, and she was a doctor, mind you, so put in almost like a decade probably of study and hard work to get to where she thought she wanted to be, and then had kids and gave it all up, and I think about her raising 5 kids, and not by herself. My dad was around, but he also worked like a dog to have a family of 5, which is, you look back now and you go, all these things that we took for granted and all these things that we just thought were easy to come by. Like, no, your parents slogged,
You don't value that stuff as a kid though.
Yeah, but I'm
you
saying
value it now.
That's a nice thing now. It's becoming a parent and running businesses and having, one kid and knowing how difficult it is, and then going, whoa, my parents 5x that, they did this times 5. That is unbelievable, so,
which I can't imagine.
Yeah,
and similarly, same with single parents. Like, I don't know how my mum brought up 2 little girls on her own. Like, it's truly unfathomable to me. So, hats off to you guys. If you're doing it tough with 1, or if you're doing it tough with 5, and if you're doing it tough with both of you in the home or just with one of you in the home, good on you. Either way, it is bloody hard. So, just hats off to whoever's out there doing it tough.
And I think something that Jad has mentioned to me, which I don't think maybe she's really thought of talking about today, but I thought I would bring up, is that no, you said that you're really excited for your second, for mainly the fact that the thing that I mentioned earlier is that nothing's new. Like what you're doing now, you feel very competent, and
I wanted to
you're excited to enjoy having a newborn and being like a confident and competent mother instead of, going into the dark and being in the shit and really struggling through the first stage. And I thought that was like a really interesting take, because I don't think many people consider that although it's, daunting to add a second, it's like you're also going to be able to enjoy it more so than the first, which is a weird concept.
I'm really looking forward to having a newborn and being able to be present and enjoy it, instead of feeling like I'm in survival mode and panicking about every single decision and whether or not I'm feeding right, or whether or not they're wrapped correctly, or whether or not they can, just breathe, or like just little things that you panic about as a first-time parent because you have no bloody idea what you're doing. I'm so excited to experience newborn again and just be able to enjoy it, even though it's still going to be really hard, and I don't doubt that, with Fletch around, who's still going to be so little. I do not doubt that for a second. I think it's going to be really beautiful and magical and kind of healing in a sense to have that experience again and know what to expect this time. To some degree, you never know. Bub could come out with, Bub could be a NICU baby, like, knock on wood, you never know. But hopefully all well and good, healthy baby, and get to bring Bub home. Praying Bub sleeps better than Fletch. I really do. I'm really praying to the sleep gods, because that would make the experience even better. But knowing now, what we know about how maybe my milk supply wasn't as strong as it could have been, and being able to just make a bloody bottle and not freak out about bottle feeding, and not because I did in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, the bottle feeding, the formula, because you read things and people say the whole breast is best thing, but we all know fed is best and slept is best. Not panicking about all that stuff again is going to be so, so nice to just do it again with like a deep breath. Even if I'm not sleeping, at least I'll know what I'm doing. And I think that's going to be really beautiful and really amazing. And I'm really excited for that. And I'm hoping I'm not going in blind again with this idea of it being enjoyable and then have the exact same experience of it being really tough and scary. Hopefully.
I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And something that I were sort of, the thing that I said I was most looking forward to before we had a kid, when Jad asked me, and she said, what's you most excited about? I said the feeling of essentially unconditional love, like having this thing that's half you and half the person you love. And it's not only like just a feeling, but it's literally like a biological pull to this little being. And I thought that would be really special. And I actually, you don't understand that when you're not a parent, which is, it's a weird concept because you hear it from your parents when you're growing up. They go, I love you so much. I can't even explain it. And they grit their teeth and they go, I just can't, I can't explain to you. I can't tell you. And then you get to feel that and it's very special. And it reminded me of something that my dad actually said in his wedding speech with Jad and I, which was like, it's this thing which he said, and I'd never thought about it like this, and it really stuck with me. Where
it stuck with me too.
Yeah, my parents had 5 kids, and my dad said that he was always surprised every kid because he said that he thought that his love, like his potential for love, was essentially capped, right? And he said that the more kids that he had, he said he realized that your love is never divided between your children; it's only multiplied. And I thought that was a really special thing because the way I feel towards Fletch, and I'm sure Jad does, it's like you're in awe of them, and it's this special thing. And I can't imagine that being multiplied. I can't imagine
makes me emotional.
Having a second one and that feeling being amplified. And I think that that's really, really special and something like I'm very much looking forward to. But then I also thought about the idea of not only love and feelings, but for me, being a parent and being a dad, it's probably the most, fulfilling thing I think I've ever done and most rewarding thing. Like nothing in my life, career, achievements, things that I've ticked off, nothing is the same feeling as seeing him even turn around when you say his name and giggle and be cheeky, or when you walk through the door, say Dada and crawl to you and reach up. Like nothing compares to that, right? And so I'm wondering if that feeling of, of it being such a rewarding and fulfilling experience will even amplify and multiply with having more kids, because that's the way I sort of feel about it. And I can understand the love being multiplied, but it's whether I think that feeling just stays the same, or if, the more and more you have, if that feeling is also sort of amplified.
It's like before we had Bub, I couldn't imagine loving anyone more than you. Like I was like, how am I going to love this baby more than I love Locke? And my mum was like, just wait, just wait until you feel this love. And it's not more, it's different. Obviously, it's a very different kind of love. But I can't similarly now imagine loving another, like I hate to say it, but loving another baby as much as I love Fletcher. But I think about what your dad said about your love isn't divided, it's multiplied. And I'm like, wow, like how lucky are we that we're going to get to experience that again and more throughout the day. And it's just the most beautiful, magical feeling ever. And it completely, you talk about the stuff that's really hard, right? Because it is really hard, and you share that with people and perhaps share it online. And I think sometimes people who haven't had the experience yet go, why do people go and have more? If it's this hard, why are you having more kids? If you're really struggling, why are you having more kids? And it's because those tiny little moments, like one little smile, one little giggle, one thing, one moment in the day completely erases like the torturous night that you had. You literally wake up with Bub after having 2 hours of sleep where he was screaming the whole bloody time, and he smiles at you within that cute little dozy state that he has. And it's gone. It's completely gone. Entirely gone, and you forget, and then the sun sets and you kind of remember a little bit and you start freaking out. But that's okay, because then the next day you forget again. It's just this perpetual cycle of like, yeah, it's really hard, but obviously people are having more because it's worth it and because it's so magical and beautiful. And I just have to say, like, being pregnant with a bub already is so different to being pregnant the first time, where you're like, la, 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 la. Like, you know, maybe you're a bit nauseous, or, you know, you've got your fatigue and you're having your naps, but like having to look after a child and work and keep a house and then grow another baby. Wow. It's been so good.
You don't have to do much, right? It's just growing. Like, it's not like you have to check in for the growing from 9 to 5. Like, it just happens around you, right?
You're just like walking rage bait, aren't you?
I like to say something nice and then, you know, really mix it up.
Right hook.
No, but what we were talking about before, like when I mentioned, you know, it being fulfilling and rewarding, and the most fulfilling and rewarding thing I've ever done, I always feel a little bit almost guilty having that thought and then voicing it, because I feel like sometimes it perhaps might fall on ears of people who don't have kids or people who don't want kids. And I never want it to seem like I'm saying that you can't have a life that's rewarding and fulfilling without children.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
not what I mean. I'm speaking solely from the point that within myself, there's nothing that I will personally do that will bring me more fulfillment and more joy or be more rewarding. So as in, I never want people to think that I'm coming from the standpoint that, you know, if you don't have kids, you can't have a fulfilling and rewarding life, because that's not, I'm just saying personally for me, that's how I feel about having children. And that's what makes it, very, very
We're
special
never
for me.
invalidating other people's lives and
Yeah,
experiences.
and I always think that that's I never want it to be
No.
heard like that or come
Yeah.
across like that, because that's definitely not what I mean when I.
That's
when I
good of you to
make that point.
clarify.
Yeah,
Well, back to you making fun of me for being pregnant and just growing something in my belly. Basically, for the people wondering like what it's like to be pregnant and have a bub at the same time, obviously you don't have time to kind of rest and relax in the way that you might have the first time. But I will say one benefit is that I haven't had time to kind of dwell on the things that have been hard, if that makes sense. Like, because I'm already tired, this is going to sound so depressing in a sense. I'm not noticing that I'm tired from being pregnant, if that's making sense. And, you know, like, I've had spells of nausea. Like, I'm very lucky, and I have been in both my pregnancies so far, in that it's been pretty cruisy. Apart from my first pregnancy, I had one kind of scare that I've spoken about before. This one, I've not had anything of such, and my symptoms have actually been even less, or I've just not noticed them because I've been too busy. But I felt like I was in my second trimester halfway through my first trimester. Like, everything was really quite muted. However, on the days that I was feeling really, for example, tired, or had a headache and just like couldn't manage myself very well, it was difficult to kind of pick up and carry on. And I'm very lucky that, like, you know, we've spoken about, Locke and I both work from home. So he's been around to help in those moments, and I've been able to actually nap, which a lot of, like, you know, stay-at-home mums haven't had the chance to do whilst they've been pregnant again. So I'm very, very lucky in that sense. But in terms of like this pregnancy and symptoms, there's not been a whole lot going on. Like, most of the time I kind of forget I'm pregnant, and then I remember and I'm like, oh yeah. And
I haven't asked Locke to do anything for a while. I should probably pull that card out.
Yeah. So it's been actually better than I anticipated. I thought I'd have really hectic fatigue like I did the first time, but I haven't. I've just been a bit tired, a little bit nauseous.
Super irritable.
For the most part, pretty good, which is great. I'm just hoping that it continues this way.
The weirdest thing for me to get my head around having another baby is you go through having your first one, right? And it's, you know, he's 11 months, so he's almost a year. We've been through it, and it's been a slog, but it's been beautiful. And it feels like you've run this marathon and you've tripped over 50 times. And then
50s,
you know, your wife's pregnant with the next one, and it's this weird feeling where you go, holy shit, I'm about to start this marathon all over again. But it's like knowing that you're going to be doing it wearing like a weight vest because you already have a kid, right?
I love that.
And so it's this weird thing where you're excited and then you're just like, oh man, it's going to be hard in a different way. And it's just, you know, I don't really know what to think, you know? So I'm as Jad said, the time's flying
Yeah.
this time around because we have a kid already. We have everything that we had to deal with before, plus, the added extra of Fletch. So time is passing, and it's nice that it's going quick, but it's gonna catch up to us real quick.
And it's going to be,
they're gonna be here.
It's going to be especially hard when they're a little bit older, and we realize that we've got to
Wait, no, that's not how you should do it.
go on.
Are you going to tell them what we're having just then?
Yeah.
I reckon that the better way is to say if we have to buy new clothes or not.
Mine was going to be better. I was going to say, and it's going to be really fun and whatever I
You can
said.
still do it, mate.
And I forgot what I was saying. And then we're going to have 2 teenage boys at some point.
Yeah. I'm actually stoked because it means we don't have to buy any new clothes.
Yeah, that's Locke's favourite part. It's
Yeah.
like we don't have to spend any extra money, which I will be doing anyway.
Awesome.
But
And it's funny. It's funny. We're chuffed that he's going to have a brother because I think that'll be an
So
unbelievably
chuffed.
special bond.
Yeah.
And
so close in age.
I have brothers. It's fantastic. I'm still unbelievably close to mine. It's very special. And I can imagine the brother that I have closest to me is a 6-year age gap, and we have a great relationship. So I can't even imagine what, 2 at 18 months apart.
They're not
going to
know a life without one another,
Yeah,
basically.
It's gonna be lovely. But that being said, Jad and I also were very excited to have a girl because we have a few nieces in the family, and it's very different to having a boy. So we were excited to potentially have that that mix and match of experiencing it in a different way. But it's funny, once you have one, it's like if they have a sister, great, and then you go if they have a brother, also great. So it's like you can't really lose.
I think from like a selfish perspective, it's like we would have liked to experience having a girl and also like someone for me to pass my wardrobe down to. But from Fletcher's perspective, I'm happier that it's a boy. I just think the bond of 2 brothers so close in age is going to be magical until they're wrestling, and in which case I'm outnumbered. I'm severely outnumbered in this household, guys. Testosterone's going to be swimming around me.
And to think we might have to try again for a girl.
No, we're not. God, I don't think we're the kind of people who are going to go again for a specific gender. It's like we're either having a 3rd kid or we're not.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when
And
we
let's
come
just
to it.
hold your bloody horses, mate. Like, what are you talking about?
We're actually still figuring out one.
I'm just finished trimester 1 for the 2nd baby. Let's just relax a little bit before we start chatting about 3.
Deal. All right, guys. Now, as you know, we end our episodes with an Ask Mum and Dad, whereby you guys write in and we attempt to help you with a dilemma that you are having in your life. So this week says, something that's been playing on my mind a bit is that my partner and I will probably move in together in the next year or so. For context, we currently live separately and have been together a few years. We also earn roughly the same income and split general costs. My concern is that he generally has quite high standards and likes nice things, which isn't an issue, as I do too, but I'm a little bit more money conscious. I'm worried that when we eventually look at moving in together, he's going to want to rent somewhere within a higher budget than I would like. I would be happy to generally sacrifice a little by maybe not having a super modern, freshly renovated, spacious place, but still, somewhere nice. So my query is, how would you recommend going about this if I am happy to rent, for example, an $800 place a week, but he wants a nicer $1,000 plus place?
Well, if
Thought you'd like this one, Joe.
If you can't agree, he can fork out the rest. That's what I reckon.
I don't necessarily disagree. I just think that's a weird way of saying it.
Why?
Like, stuff him, he can fork out the rest.
Well, no, if you and I were like, if you came to me and said, I don't feel comfortable paying this, and I said, well, I definitely want to live in a nicer place and that's my choice, I think I would say I'll pay more if that was something that really was important to me.
Sure.
However, at the end of the day, it's kind of both of our money, isn't it?
I'm saying I agree, but I'm
Right.
just saying I think you can go about it in a nicer way.
But don't you reckon?
Well, they're not married, so it's essentially not both their
Well, like
money.
you're together for a few years, you're finally moving in together. The goal is to, you're sharing everything.
Yeah, you'd hope so, but how many people
It's
would...
kind of her money anyway.
You've dated many people and haven't got married to them, so, probably
Not for
says
several
that
years.
it's not going to work
I
out.
haven't moved in with anyone but you.
I would say that the best thing to do is exactly what Jad said, but you essentially say, look, I'm comfortable with this budget, so like I'm happy if we split a place, but also if you want a more luxurious place, like I'm happy to be there with you, obviously, but unfortunately I won't be able to contribute any more than X because I have certain, financial goals and I'm trying to save and I don't feel comfortable spending that much on rent and I need to account for this and this, whether it's saving money for travel or other things. So, yeah, I think it's a very fair conversation to have. And, for the most part, I'm sure he probably wouldn't mind spending a little bit extra. And, things in a relationship are never 50-50 in my opinion. So they don't need to be, 50-50 down the middle when it comes to money. And
well, they're never 50-50 because they end up being 50-50.
Explain that to me, sorry.
So you might go to a dinner and you're paying for it and I'm not. And then the next day I'm paying for dinner and you're not. Because it levels out, right?
Yeah, but if you're paying hundreds of dollars a week extra on rent, it'd be tough for that to even out.
Maybe she's in charge of the Uber Eats orders.
Yep, that could be it. You should tell her that. Yeah.
Or you get married and it's 50-50 anyway.
Yeah, your thoughts
everything equalizes.
Your thoughts on finances
Sometimes.
will definitely shift once you're married and you realize that you're this joint unit or that's trying to
if you're moving in together,
build
that's
this life
kind of
together.
like that's the goal, right? You're already there. You
Perhaps-
just haven't signed a paper.
Perhaps might be the goal, but people move in together also for like convenience. If one's getting kicked out, they might
Sure.
want to move in with the other one to help them, or people might have a savior complex and be trying to assist people where it's not necessary. You're smiling at me like,
Sorry. Were you just...
well, I mean, I'm
you just
speaking
travelling
from
back in time
experience,
there?
yeah. That I've moved in with someone before that I didn't necessarily think
Savior
I was going to
complex.
marry. So
Bless
yeah,
you.
shit happens, So I wouldn't really want to join finances with someone until I was married to them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
What
I
would
think-
you do if I said I want to live here? Which is kind of
What
a
do you mean?
likely scenario.
We've had this conversation 100 times when it comes to even staying when we travel in hotels. And Jad's like, I want to stay here. And I'm like, well, I don't really feel comfortable paying that much for half a hotel room for a night. So
What's the
maybe not.
result?
And then Jad just goes, I'll pay for it. Yeah. So no, I'm saying, but we still have the conversation, It's never like a.
Yeah, but the outcome's always the same.
Yeah, the outcome is always Jad's way or the highway, guys. So pretty much.
But do you feel now that like you've kind of been cheated because I've ended up spending money that's probably ours?
I don't feel cheated. That's a silly way of looking. That's
Spent
your
a
money.
lot of money.
It's your money to spend. But I also don't think you've probably spent it in a you could definitely have a house by now.
No, because if you
didn't have
rewind,
some habits you had.
sorry,
earlier
if
in
you
life.
actually rewind the pod, you said earlier we've had a lot of amazing experiences. We've done a lot of traveling. We're very grateful for.
But zero of my amazing experiences have been inside a hotel room. All of the experiences have been outside. So if I was staying in a hostel,
what free plane is taking you overseas, sweetie?
oh yeah, I'm not talking about the plane. I'm talking
That
about
costs money.
I'm talking about
That's part of it.
where I sleep and where I wake up at the end of the day and beginning of the day means nothing to me compared to the experiences in a place.
You're so full of shit.
No, that's not at all.
Okay, we've had multiple amazing hotels where you've gone, wow.
Yeah, I'm saying.
And I bet if we were in, a hostel with no window and a bit of poo smear on the wall, you're not having the same experience.
No, I'm saying.
We have stayed. We've done a place.
I
like
can
that,
walk
guys.
into a hotel and go, "This is beautiful," and this is very lucky to be here. But I can also go, "I wouldn't personally spend my hard-earned
No,
money
you
to
wouldn't.
be here."
I
So,
would, and you just get to be there.
Yeah, that's your choice. I don't want to be there.
But my point is, it ends up being
I can not come if you want.
your
That's
money
fine.
too, because we're married with kids.
Yeah, now it is.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I've gone and spent your money whilst you've said no, I don't want to.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be angry about you about something in the past I didn't have control over.
I feel like I'm exposing myself for the next trip I want to go on. I should really reel it in.
Yeah, we've had some trips where I've said to Jad, let's keep to some budgets, and then she's been there, and I've been like, so how are you sitting with your budget? And she's like, well, I'm about 10 grand over. I'm like, that's not how budget works. Like, and she goes, I thought it was just like a rough. I was like, no, words have definitions, and definitions are meaning, and meaning means something.
Thought a budget was like a goal, and if you went over, all good.
Yeah, it's fun living with Jadé. And then she goes, but I really want to buy a house. I'm like, well, maybe we shouldn't be staying in this location if you want to buy a house in the next decade.
No, I'm of the belief that you should be able to do it all.
Okay, we've really got off the track
That's
here,
my
guys.
goal in life.
We're not helping anyone. Yeah, have a chat with your partner. Tell him that, you're happy with X amount. And I think it's a very fair conversation to have because different people have, different, I would say, upbringings with money. So, and I think it then impacts how they view it, how they want to spend it, how they
we
value it, which is very fair. And you're not often going to, meet someone with the same experience
No,
as
you
yourself.
know what?
So-
We've had the same upbringing with money. My mum was not an exuberant spender. She had the same handbag for 10 years, right? I thought that was normal. I thought most women just carried the same handbag for 10 years until it literally broke off your shoulder and you needed to buy a new one. Whereas I've grown up
So where did
spending a bit more frivolously.
your rubbish idea of money come from?
I
'Cause
think when I started making money, like I remember getting my first contract when I was working admin in an office and it said 35 grand or whatever it was. Like, it was minimum wage for an 18-year-old who just finished school. I was like, wow, 35 G's, baby, let's go.
$14 an hour.
And then,
that's
your
crazy.
weekly income comes through and you're kind of like, oh, it's not that much. But anyway, I'd spend it all on shoes and stuff because I was really excited to have money to spend because I've never had expendable income before
Yeah,
like
I
that.
understand that mindset
that
when you're
just kept
18,
going.
but when you're 30,
Just
it
kept
kind of
going
needs to
and
shift,
just
right?
kept going and going and going.
Yeah. Jad is like the walking, I want my cake and eat it too.
I
Like, she
love,
just-
yeah, I do. I really believe in love that you should just get everything you like.
Sometimes we'll have financial conversations and I'll be like, Jad, if you want X, you might have to sacrifice, a little bit of Y. And she'll go, no, I want to have them both. And
Yeah,
I think
want
I can
both.
have them both.
I
And
think
I'm like,
I should make both
all right,
work.
well, good luck getting them then.
The goal
So,
is to make it all happen.
Yeah. And how's that going for us?
Well, we're not staying in the motels with the poo on the wall, so.
All right, guys. Just I don't even know where that Ask Mum and Dad just
We need to
went.
wrap it
I apologise
Sorry.
actually a little bit to this person.
Sorry.
They probably didn't get much help, but you got a little bit of an insight into our financial debate.
No,
So-
yeah, I think they did get. I think the help was good. It's you stand your ground firm, and you say if you'd like to live in a nicer place, by all means, go ahead, chip in a little bit more. But this is my situation, and this is where I stand. Love you.
Guys, we appreciate you every single week. It means a lot. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed a little insight into our financial issues as well as what it's going to be like to have a second little bub join us soon.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed, and we will chat to you again next week.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.